Hey guys, welcome to the first of 4 videos for our new puzzle platforming tutorial series / game recreation or whatever this turns into. I want to shout out the official AMT for suggesting that I recreate PontyPants' Brackies 2021 Game Jam submission Mind Loop. So Mind Loop is a game where you want to get both players through the door. So if we try to, let's say, only get our pink player through the door, it doesn't work. You need to get both players next to each other in order for the door to open. And then you'll come into challenges like this where you have a pit where if I was to fall down here, I can't get back up, right? Now if I put my pink guy over here, I can overcome the pit, get my guys next to each other, and move on to the next room. And the next movement option is stacking either player on top of each other's head, throwing up top, and overcoming the obstacle. And there's a host of different puzzle ideas you can come up with just these movement types. Now let's hop into the game and see what you'll have completed by the end of these 4 videos. So this is the title screen. Let's just go ahead and hit play. So our game has fully functioning level transition screens, kind of NES looking transitions. And we have our 2 characters here. And like in PontyPants' game, if you only have one character near the door, you cannot enter. But if both of them are next to each other, I've put a particle effect, which we'll go over in one of the videos, but now we can exit the door and on to the next level. And each level has its transition scene. They're all component-based transitions, so it's easy to set up the levels, and they progress similar to PontyPants'. So let's move on to the next room here. And then I also have in my menu section here, you can go to any level you want. So let's say we go to level 4 and we have the pit challenge like in PontyPants' game. So now I reset the level, go to the block, and jump over the pit just like that. And now we can move on to the final level that I've implemented, which is the stacking element of the game, where you can throw your friend up there and then cross over to the other side. And for now, the game just loops back to the first level. But yeah, that's pretty much what you'll have at the end of this series. So we're starting off in a blank Godot environment. Let's begin by creating our folder structure. We're going to start with assets, components, entities, stages, UI, and utilities. As we go on, we'll create more subdirectories, but this will do for now. Let's start off by making our first level scene. So let's click 2D scene and rename this to level 1. Under this node, we want to get another node 2D, and we'll name this tile map layers. Under this node, we'll then get 2 tile map layers, and we'll name one background layer, and the other we will call midground layer. Before setting up our tile map layers, we're gonna have to import some art. In my case, I made some sprite sheets. You can use them if you want. They're linked in the description. You can just go to the GitHub page for the game and just take them from there. Or you can make your own or get some off itch. It's up to you. I've already imported them into the game under my assets folder. So now we can go ahead and start setting up our tile map layers. Let's start by creating our tile sets. So come over to the inspector tab, click on empty, and do new tile set. So under tile size, we want 16 by 16 if you're using my asset pack. It depends on which one you use, so just double check what it is. And then you can come down to the bottom menu here, click tile set, click the plus button, and hit Atlas. And then we can click our tile sheet PNG. And it's asking if it wants to automatically create tiles, and we can just say yes. So now if we zoom in here, we can see this is our tile set. So now if we come over to tile map, we can select these and start drawing. But you're gonna notice something. They're really blurry and also very small on the canvas because our canvas is this blue outline here. So now we're gonna have to set up our game screen. Okay, let's go up to our project settings, and we'll go to our window tab. And for our resolution, I'm gonna do 1/3 of 1920. So this is a really cool tip. So you can just do 1920 divided by 3, and we'll get 640. And then we'll do 1080 divided by 3, 360. And that's gonna be our resolution for the game. And then we want to just come down here, and we want our mode to be canvas items, and we'll have aspect as keep, and then for scale mode we'll do integer. And so now if we close out, we're gonna see that looks a little more proper. A tile kind of fits properly on the screen, but we're still getting blurriness on our tiles, so let's fix that next. So let's go to projects, and then project settings, and then we can go to rendering and textures, and change linear to nearest. Now if we close out, now we get that crispy pixel look. So now if we click play, it's gonna ask us to select the current scene, and for now we can say yes, select current, and then we're gonna have to save our scene. So let's go to stages, and we'll create a new folder called levels, and we'll create one more folder called level 1, and then we will save the scene in there. And then when the game opens, you're gonna notice, oh, this window is really tiny. So the last thing we can do is go to project settings, go to window, turn on advanced settings, and we can come to window width override, and we'll change that to 1280 by 720. And now when we open the window, it's a more reasonable size. And our pixel art is crispy, so now we can move on to the next step. Okay, next step we will do is just quickly setting up our midground layer. So we'll do new tile set, come down to the menu, go to tile set, plus add new atlas, click on our tile sheet, yes. And now both of our tile layers are set up, and we can move on to setting up our players. So let's do one at a time. So we'll create a new scene, plus we'll do character body 2D, and we'll name this player 1, and we will add our collision shape 2D. We will add an animated sprite 2D. Perfect. Okay, so let's create some animations. So we can create new animation, and if we click on that, it will open up our menu here. And we're just going to create a couple animations before we start scripting. We're not going to be doing any scripting in this video. We're just setting everything up. So let's type idle, and we'll do jump, do fall, we'll do walk, and we'll do fade. And all of this will make more sense as we continue to go on. So let's start off with our idle animation. So you can click on add frames from sprite sheet, and which is in our folder here. So in our case, we have 2 rows, and vertically we have 2, and then we have 13 frames. So we'll start off with the top player here. So his idle animation is this, and then fall animation is this guy, jump animation is this one, walk animation is this, and then fade is used for our level transition, so it's not super important right now, but still set that up. Oops. There we go. Perfect. And for idle, we want it to be looping, and we want it to autoplay. Fall, we don't need to loop. Fade, we do not need to loop. Jump, don't need to loop. And walk, we do want to loop. And you can do this to your own taste, but when you press play, you can look at how fast it's going and turn it up if you think it's needed. So I think 10 frames looks good to me. And yeah, so I'll mess around with these and you can do that as well until you think it looks good. And then next thing we can do is add our collision shape. So we want to be on an animation that lets us see the default stance. There we go. And I'm gonna create a box collision and set it up so that it's right on his feet. And you want to leave a little space on the sides and the top of the head, because bumping into the walls, it just feels better if you have an extra pixel that's clipping into the wall. So that's good for setting up our player here. Now let's just save our player. And let's go to our entities folder and we'll create a new folder called players, and we'll create one more and we'll call it player 1, and then we'll save our player 1 scene into there. Perfect. And now we can move on to creating the second player. I'll let you guys do that, and it's exact same as the first one. You just use the bottom part of the sprite sheet, and we'll continue after we're done setting that up. Okay, I finished setting up my character, so now we can save this guy. And we'll go back, and we'll make a folder called player 2 and save him in there. Next thing I want to do is set up the door scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new scene, and I'm going to create an area 2D. Under the area 2D, I'm going to have a collision shape, and I'm going to have an animation sprite 2D. I'm going to go to my animation sprite, create a new animation, and I'm going to create an idle animation, an open, and I'll make a close animation. Perfect. Okay, so in my assets, if you downloaded the ones that I have on my GitHub, you can click on my door sprites, and this is just one column, and we have 7 different images. So this will be our idle, and then we'll do our close next. So that will be in reverse order, and we'll do an open, and oh yeah, I forgot one. We'll do a fade, and again, that's for the level transitions. Just go like that. Perfect. For the fade, we don't want it to loop. Close, we don't want it to loop. Open, we don't want it to loop. And idle, it can loop, and we'll do we'll have the autoplay feature on. Perfect. So then now we just want to set up our detection box on here. So we can put that in front and just drag it out. Not too big because you want both players to be standing in front of the door to open it. So that looks good. There. Perfect. For now, that's all we need to do for setting up our entities. Now I'll save this, and this will also be saved in entities, but I'll do it outside of the player folder. I'll call this door. There we go. Save. Perfect. Okay, now we have all of our entities set up for the project. The last thing I want to do in this video is just set up our tile set to have a physics layer and just build out our first level. So to get started, we're gonna go do our midground layer, because this is actually the only layer we'll need to have physics. So if you come over to the inspector tool, if you don't see this menu, you just have to click on the tile set and go down to physics layers and do add element. And for our case, we're gonna you can see there's a bunch of different layer names here. We're gonna name them. So if you click on these 3 dots here, you can go edit layer name. I'm gonna call layer 1 environment. I'm gonna call layer 2 call it player 1. And I'll call layer 3 player 2. That's all we'll need for now. So now that we've finished setting up our names for our layers and masks, we want to come over to the inspector tab, go down to the physics layers, and actually assign the layers and masks. In our case, the environment layer is already assigned to the tiles, and that's what we want. And now we just need to say what that layer collides with. So what that layer is going to collide with is our player's collision layer, which we haven't set yet. So they'll be set to player 1 and player 2. Just not to forget, we'll go ahead and give our players their collision too. So this is player 1. So we want our player 1 to be on collision layer named player 1 and not on environment. And then we want it to collide with the environment. And we also want it to collide with player 2. Because when we're moving around, we're going to be bumping into each other. So we want to make sure we're also colliding with the other player. And then if we go to player 2, if we go to collisions, we want this player to be on player 2, and we want him to be able to see the environment, and we want him to be able to see player 1. I hope that makes sense. So now I'm just going to start building my level. Just one thing to add while you're building, make sure that you use the different features that come with the tile map. So we can use the rectangle tool to fill in these huge areas of space instead of doing it one at a time, which makes it a lot faster. Okay, so now I've completed my mid-ground layer of my tile map here for the first level. So now I'm going to go into my background, and you can see, you'll know what layer you're in because it desaturates the other layers so that you can see it better. So now we're in the background layer. So I'm going to do black rectangle, and I created these little graphics here to spice it up, I guess, just to delineate between the background of the stage and the tiles that are out of bounds. So I kind of just come in here. You can hit X to rotate tiles so that you can kind of randomize as you're placing. And yeah, you just kind of place them randomly. And then you can come in with this smaller one, and it just adds a little layer of detail to our map here. You don't need to think too hard about it. It's just random. There's no rhyme or reason. There we go. So now we have our background, and it just kind of gives it, like, I don't know, some kind of rocky texture. I don't really know what I was going for here, but I don't know, it works. So your level doesn't need to look exactly like mine, but yeah, this works. And now we can click play. There we go. The last thing I want to do is just to drag in some of our elements here. All right, let's just search up door, and now we can place the door scene in here. And I'm going to drag that to the center of the room. Perfect. Doesn't need to be perfect. And then last, I'm just going to drag my players into the scene. There we go. And you can just drag them right down next to the door. And again, they're not going to be moving yet, but that'll be in the next video. We're just trying to get an idea of what everything's going to look like. There we go. So now we click play. There you go. They're moving. We have our stage set up. Looks good. We got quite a bit done in this video, so I'm going to leave it here. In the next video, which is coming out this week, I'll be setting up our character scripts and how they interact with the environment and the door. I'll also be linking the GitHub for the game in the description, so you can check that out. And I'll also be linking PontyPants' channel and itch page, so go check those out too. And throughout this series, anything I use, fonts, all of that will be in the description, so just check that If you have any questions, do leave a comment, subscribe if you're so inclined, and leave a like. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.